The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. We are back. New York Mets in the zone. I'm Ralph Tyko, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. So far, Marty is under the weather, and Robert is here. Bernie is on his way. And Robert Cole, thank you for being here first.
Oh, no, not a problem.
Good. I don't know. Let's look for the good things to take out of the season, and I think there are many. The baby Mets are coming along. Would you elaborate on that? There's Barney.
I am here.
Good to hear your voice. We just started, and we're going to talk about some of the positives that are coming out of this season. And what do they call them? The baby Mets, the four guys that are doing it. Let's take their development one at a time. Start with Alvarez, the catcher, Robert Cole.
Yeah, he's going to be fine. He's going to be a big slugger, probably not much for average. He's a much better defensive catcher than, people were talking about before he came up. Pitchers seem to like throwing to him. Other team scouts rate him very highly. He's very good at framing, but that's going to become a lost art if and when they start using the robot umpire. But he's very energetic. He has a better arm than we thought also. It's very difficult to throw runners out in this new age of baseball, but he's gotten his share. And he'll be good. He'll be a standby as long as he doesn't get hurt.
Okay. I'm going to let Bernie Rose talk about Beatty.
Well, you got to give him a chance. I don't know how it's going to be next year if they're going to come back with all these kids and not fill in with some proven guys. But 215 doesn't cut it, but I suspect he'll be better than that, wouldn't you think? He was all world, for a good part of the year in the minors, and you got to give him a chance. I mean, he had 9 home runs with the Mets, so he wasn't up all that long.
Yeah, lately he's come on. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
good.
And something I always remember about a third baseman, I remember Mike Schmidt in his first year batted 198 for the season, and he didn't turn out to be too bad.
No, he didn't, and that wasn't just part time. He like 150 games, something like that. And
he played a full season, hit 198. And, somehow the light bulb went on. And,
right. I just want to stress the difference between AAA and the big leagues. When these kids progress from rookie ball on up, each level is a slightly different skill set. But the difference between AA or AAA and the majors is considerably different. Just the psychological point of when you get a base hit, everybody in the United States that reads the box scores is going to know about it. And that's no matter what city you're playing, especially New York, where everything is front page. The back page is the front page. The pressure is immense, and the learning skill, the little tricks of survival in the big leagues, it's not just what's written in the book. It's what you do between pitches, how you organize your head. So I have to give all these guys a lot of credit so far. Who has the most power? Vientos. Am I correct?
Well, actually, all four of them can hit home runs. Mauricio, the ball jumps off of his bat.
Right.
Beatty also, he squares up the ball. So all four guys have power. I mean, you have four young guys, if they play every day, okay, each one of them is capable of hitting 25 home runs.
You just have to hope that, the small sampling of average that we got this year is going to get better. Because if you're starting all four of these guys and they're all hitting 215, that doesn't bode well, But the potential is certainly there. And you got to hope that they would grow into it,
Well, guys are hitting all over the league. Guys are hitting for a much lower average.
Yes.
So,
and the expectation has been set that the Mets are going to have an off year next year. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they're going to be a much better team than people are giving credit for, or that Max Scherzer is giving them credit for. And I'll talk about him later. But, go ahead and use them. Use those four guys. They're supposed to be your future. The expectations is not that high. And let's see if they can prove people wrong.
Well, Muncy on the Dodgers is a guy who hit 214 so far this year, but he's got 103 RBIs and 36 home runs and an 821 OPS. So if averages are down in general, except for the chosen few up there, and that's the way of the future, he ended up having a good year, even though most of the year he was hitting below 200. He's hitting 190 all year long, and then he finally got hot a little bit to raise it up to 215. But that could be very frustrating because with him, he was so cold for so long. If you look at the stats that he has, if he was just halfway better, he'd have 150 RBIs and 50 home runs.
Well, I mean,
maybe not 50, but
Look at Schwarber of the Phillies.
Another one, yeah. You're exactly right.
I mean, look at Alonso. Alonso's only hitting around 220.
That's true too.
He's got a shot at hitting 50 home runs again, and he's got like 115, 120 RBIs already. So,
Schwarber's got 45 home runs, but he's hitting 197. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, do you remember when we were kids, the old thing? Hey, walks as good as a hit. Mm-hmm. And if you add up some of these guys' walks, and you look at their on-base percentage, they might as well have a 280 average if they're going to get on base that much.
Well, Schwarber either hits a home run, strikes out, or walks. Okay, that's one of the three outcomes with him. Okay, he has more home runs than he has singles. So figure that out.
Well, these guys have been paid for so long just to hit home runs that with that, the priority being home runs, the changing face of baseball gives way to the 5-tool player of old, where a guy, is more valuable hitting 30-30 than 10-40, say. So baseball is going to change as the result of these rule changes. And I want to ask you guys off the subject a little bit, off the subject of the Mets in general, which rules you like and which rules you don't like. Robert.
They're all okay. I mean, you know, the idea was to speed up the game. It has done that. You know, the number of times a pitcher can step off, you know, that can be frustrating sometimes. But I'm okay with all of them. The only thing I'd like them to do away with is, you know, the ghost runner in extra innings.
Right. It seems that every fan I've ever talked to, that sticks in their craw. They really didn't need that. But speeding up the game, the 10-second thing, I've become adjusted to that. I've become adjusted 35, 40 minutes less and get the same option in. Can't complain about that.
It's all come into the norm, you know. I think you're right. Everybody's kind of adjusted to it. I'm not crazy about the extra inning thing, but you know, even that, you know, it is what it is. You know, you got to stop the guy from scoring if you want to win. You know, or it could go for a couple of 3 innings where they all keep scoring, but you know, you got to get more than one then if you want it to end fast. But it's I'm not crazy about it, but it doesn't matter anymore.
No, just like we were all up in arms when they did away with the intentional walk, you know, where they didn't have to throw the pitches anymore, and you know, everybody was in an uproar about that. Now it's normal, you know.
Right.
You know, the bigger bases, nobody's really complained about that. Everybody thought that, you know, that there's going to be even more stolen bases than there is because of the, you know, how many times the pitcher can throw over. That really hasn't changed much.
It has bastardized the rule book a little bit. Just given as many stolen bases, there aren't as many as were projected, but there's a lot. Acuna of the Braves just went 30-30, and there'll be more. So,
Acuna, I think, went 40-40.
Yep, and 2 more stolen bases, he'll be 40-70.
Yeah.
He's almost at 40-70. Yeah, he just hit his 40th.
Wow.
Now,
he's the first one to do it.
Yeah. Now, next year, I think there may be, you may see a little more, because a lot of teams weren't prepared for all the different rules changes. They weren't sure how things were going to work out. Now they've had a full season, and they'll sit down and, you know, they'll probably make their teams up a little bit differently, too.
Right. Do you like the fact that Stern is the president?
We'll have to wait and see. You know, I mean, he did a good job in Milwaukee, but Milwaukee is a small market team. Now you hope that, you know, he's like Andrew Friedman, who went from the Rays to the Dodgers, and he still maintained his grip on things, and yet he had money to spend. So, you know, you hope Stern turns out like him rather than Keim Bloom.
Right. Good example of what can go wrong and the high expectations there. Vaughn, I'll let you answer this first. What do you think of Buck's prognosis of coming back? Should he? What kind of job has he done overall?
Well, this was just a bummer of a year. It just, right from the beginning, I don't have a problem. I'd keep him. It can't be him. It can't just be him. I mean, everything, I would liken the whole Scherzer and Verlander thing to Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. It just shouldn't have been done, and you got what you paid for, They were old, they got hurt, and they didn't perform. And with Rodgers, you didn't even get anything. But that's another sport and for another time. But
another time, we'll do just go real soon with Don Stokes, and that'll be fun.
It would be
as much fun as being a Jet fan can be.
Yeah.
And we talk about the Mets over the years. They've had sparks of decency where the Jets have been. They've had a few, but it's been horrible following them for 60-some-odd years.
The Jets haven't drafted a decent quarterback since Joe Namath.
Well, Pennington was good, but Pennington couldn't stay healthy.
Right. But I mean,
you're right.
You start with Richard Todd and work your way up. They had their one season. You had Mark Sanchez. You had these other guys, and they were all flamed out.
Yeah.
They
and
have.
if you think being a Jet fan and a Met fan is horrible, add being a Knicks fan to that.
Yeah, the triumvirate of horror shows. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
But to get back on point, you can't blame Buck for everything that went wrong this year. And the problem is, if they don't put anything together for him, are they going to blame him next year if nothing happens?
I think what's going to happen, knowing him and the kind of guy he is, he's going to go in and talk to Stern, okay, and ownership, and he'll say, if you want to go in a different direction, then I'll step away. All right, I think that's what's going to happen. In that way, and they may not. They may say, no, we want you to stay, and then that's all well and good.
They may want to kick him upstairs, and who knows from that standpoint. But
a lot depends on Stern. What his thinking is, and there's the issue of Greg Counsell, who was his manager in Milwaukee. Now, Counsell supposedly has told people he wants to take a year off and reflect. So we'll have to see.
Well, maybe that means he doesn't want to go to New York.
Well, we don't know because it hasn't been offered to him yet. Nobody could say anything really until, Stern. I mean, Stern still officially isn't the president yet because his contract ends on the last day of the baseball season with Milwaukee.
But I'm sure he has his hand in determining who they're going to keep or not. He must be building a scouting staff, that sort of thing.
Well, until it actually is officially announced, which it hasn't been, you have to remember, okay, down here in Tampa Bay, Bill Parcells twice agreed to become the coach of the Bucks and twice backed out of it after everything had been signed, sealed, and delivered.
Oh, I didn't remember that. Or speaking of Tampa, you guys have some stadium progress. I know football is more advanced along those lines than baseball. But what's going on with baseball?
Well, everybody has come to an agreement, but again, until they actually start digging the dirt and start laying the foundation, okay, nothing is certain. You know,
that's like it is with the A's.
You know, the mayor has agreed. You know, the city council has agreed. Everybody's agreed, but nobody's really agreed yet.
Nobody's put it in writing. Let's put it that way.
Correct.
Are you hopeful as a fan?
Yeah. I think it can happen. The idea of the stadium, it's going to be a fixed roof stadium, but it's going to have these big windows that can open up. So it'll be like being outdoors, but you're still indoors.
Gotcha. Yeah. Like a solarium, so to speak.
Correct. Exactly. That's what they're calling it.
Oh, wow. I learned all those big words. Learned all those big words at Newtown High School. Didn't you, Barn?
And the fact that you remembered it all these years is what is good for me.
I haven't remembered much, so give credit where credit is due. Anything I have remembered, make note of it, and put that on my gravestone. He remembered something.
There you go.
All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about that seems important to you? Start with you, Bob. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Robert. Go ahead.
Well, let me get this off my chest about Max Scherzer, okay?
Oh, please.
All right. He took it upon himself, okay, on his way out the door to become the spokesman for the entire team, okay, and decided that the team wasn't going to do well for 2 more years, okay. He announced to the world that Pete Alonso almost got traded to the Brewers, which whether or not that's true, the Brewers are saying so, but the Brewers may be, upset because Stearns is going to the Mets, so we don't know. But Scherzer had no right or reason to open his big mouth other than just to start trouble on his way out the door. Verlander left. Verlander hasn't said a word, okay? He shut his mouth. He went to his new team, and he did and he's doing his thing. But Scherzer had to open his big mouth and uncover this big can of worms, which really, affected the team for weeks, after the trading deadline. A lot of guys were walking around upset, thinking that, ownership had given up on the team for the next 2 years. And I don't think that's the case at all.
I wonder where it would have ended up had Diaz not gotten hurt, because it all went downhill from there. And maybe it was a mindset, but when you lose your closer, who was so damn effective last year, it affects every relief pitcher all the way down the line, and I think that's where it all got started, and that was the extracurricular activity that selling baseball around the world calls for, because it really has increased baseball's popularity around the world. And I think that it's a big pain in the ass. It's not going to be every spring, am I right?
No, I think it's every 4 years.
Oh, okay. But I think eventually it will work out for the best. But that killed him, and and I think that killed the spirit of Verlander and Scherzer right there. You lose a closer like that. I think they saw the season going down.
You had Diaz getting hurt. You had Quintana got hurt. Okay, and as that turned out, that was a big deal also.
Right.
That's true. All those guys were hurt.
And then Verlander.
Yeah.
Right. Verlander also. Verlander didn't pitch for the first 2 months.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, you had Marte. Marte, had the double hernia operation last off season. The first game he gets to in spring training, he gets hit in the head. Okay. One of the first games that he has during the regular season, he got hit in the hand. And, he's been absolutely nothing compared to what he was last year until he got hurt.
So that leaves that's the big question. Is he brittle? Not that getting hit in the head makes a guy brittle by any stretch, or the hand for that matter, because he was just a terrific player with the A's. And
he was a terrific player He was a terrific player for the Mets last year until August when he got hurt.
Right.
Well, I just hope going forward, all these front offices and all these owners, think about what they're doing with these old guys. I never begrudged the money, and I still don't, because if the money's there, the money's there. The amounts really don't matter, because the TV money is so astronomical, and the teams are making so much money, and the players have a right to their share. But the numbers are insane. To give a guy turning 40, like Aaron Rodgers, or Verlander, who's already 40, and Scherzer, who's 38, who the last 2 seasons showed arm weariness at the end of the season when you needed him the most, and then Verlander and Rodgers getting hurt. That's great. These guys have had great careers, but what are you throwing your money away? It's money not well spent. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, that Cohen got a little too involved with the team. He's too much of a fan to be also trying to run the team, and he was letting his fandom, show the way, and that's why it's so important to have somebody else there, that's going to call the shots, and let him be a fan, but stay out of the front office.
Absolutely.
Well, he made one move that I totally disagreed with at the beginning, and I have come 180 degrees. That's Lindor. Lindor has proven to be the best all-around shortstop in baseball. And he may not be worth $30 billion or whatever, but if you, and he isn't, and no one is, that's my point, but he's on the top of the arc in terms of what he's produced. And
well, if you look at what Corey Seager's doing this year, I put him at the top of the heap. But he has a tendency to get hurt, and he misses games. But boy, he's something. And Linda's had a great career. I don't know why his average is so low, but he's been good.
Yeah. Well, a home run, and a lot of times they come at the right time too. So it's not just the stats. stats are overrated in terms sometimes in terms of production and worth, and they're hard to quantify. And sometimes you read stuff that totally, like war, for instance, totally contradicts another major stat that I can't think of. So it's difficult, and I think there's nothing more effective for a manager than, instead of looking at the stats, look at the player's eyes before every game. Find out where they're coming from, and not just rely on the stats. In other words, how are things at home, for instance? How are those little nagging injuries coming about? That's what I liked about the Mets. They had such depth going in. Guillaume came back. Was he hurt for a long? He's been out of 2 or 3 months. Am I right?
Yes, he was sent to the minors a couple of times as well. He was sent to the minors, but he also got hurt, and most recently, and just came back from that. I was surprised to see him come back. I didn't think we'd ever see him in a Mets uniform again. Yeah,
well, I'm happy. I mean, Buck really liked him at one time. He was doing a hell of a job. Anyway, Robert, you want to tell us what you have stuck in your craw and want to get out?
Well, I pretty much did. Scherzer was stuck in my craw.
Well, okay. All right. I didn't follow that very closely, but a player leaving can have a big effect, especially when they didn't know who was next. And I just want to say it's a terrific show, given everything. We have a lot of positive things to look forward to, and that's about it. It doesn't sound too encouraging from
there's some good postseason baseball coming up, so it's too bad the New York teams aren't involved, but we've got some excitement to look forward to before we get ready for next year.
Spoken like a real Dodger fan.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how far these rookies on the starting staff.
I got to tell you, when I was saying the Giants were coming on earlier, they took a big El Foldo down the stretch. And
they sure did.
Very disappointing, because I don't tell you every time I listen to a Giant Dodger game, Vaughn, because I don't want to feel the pain. That's the only reason. But it's been miserable in the last few days, and they happen to have been playing the Dodgers. And last night or the night before was torture for a Giant fan, or a Giant apologist, let's put it that way. All right, guys. Thank you for being here. We miss Mert just so much.
Absolutely.
I wish I would have got a nice laugh out of Barn about Newtown High School. I heard Mert, but I didn't hear him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So shit is not the same and never will be. We love you, Mert. Hang in there, and love you guys too. So be well. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, Mets in the Zone. I'm Ralph Tyko, the weak link of it all. Bernie Rose makes up for it. Robert Cole makes up for it. But nobody makes up for the loss of Mert. We love you, guy. And Adios, everybody. Thank you for listening, and happy trails.
Okay.
Good night.
See you later. Bye.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices, and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.